Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues. With this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 7 of the anime series, Death Parade. And once again, just an eloquent and beautiful episode full of a bunch of revelations in this series. And I feel, again, like I'm watching a modern masterpiece in the anime culture unfolding before my eyes. You know, I mean, we're picking up where we left off, and we're really focusing on a mixture of characters in this particular episode. I mean, everyone is sort of in play. From, of course, Onna. She's waking up out of this dream once again, after we have this sort of precursor sequence where we're learning the rules, if you will, of arbitration and arbiters, specifically from the old man Oculus. You know, he's counting them off. 1, arbiters can't quit. That's why they exist, to be arbiters. You know, rule number 2 is like they can't experience death themselves, because were they to, they would be too close to humans. And obviously all of the sort of, you know, people making up this environment, this sort of, you know, between worlds of the afterlife and the living, they are potentially immortal. They are potentially beyond what we know as mortal and tangible, the, you know, human condition and everything like that. And of course, rule number 3, they can't feel emotions, basically because they are dummies. They are just there to perform a function, much as we've talked about with Decim himself. He is almost like a computer in that he doesn't seem to exhibit emotions. But the interesting thing is, if you really look at his decision-making all throughout the series thus far, and especially his seeming attachment to Onna, you know, you could argue that he is feeling something, and there's something very key to that that is revealed in this episode. But getting back to Onna, of course, she's still having the dreams of this storybook from, I guess, her childhood, Chavot. You know, it was something that was read to her, or at least that's what the memory implies, as she woke up out of the dream. And she's sort of looking around the apartment digs that she's been set up in. All the books are about alcohol, because of course Quindecim is supposed to be like a bar and all these things. But there is this one mysterious book, and it's intriguing to me to learn that there are 2 copies of this book. Not just the one Onna has, but Nona has a copy of this book as well, which is perchance telling with what we find out she has done to Decim. It's interesting that maybe she, in her own sort of situation in the Quindecim environment, is questioning things, and there's some talk about questioning. We are revealed to the original arbitrator of Quindecim, that is to say, Quinn, this woman who had gone on to be part of the Information Bureau, where they're getting all the memories of the recently deceased and stuff, and having to siphon through them. And this is what, you know, is basically impacted on the arbiters when they have to encounter these souls and test these souls. They get those memories, condensed though they may be, and rifled through sort of willy-nilly, which is what Quinn basically implies in her discussion to Nona. It's all very intriguing, though, that she was excited for, you know, Decim to take her spot and all this stuff. And we see that Decim's sort of first trial was alongside Ginty's. And basically you had Nona give them those little contraptions that can create a problem in the whole arbitration, you know, situation, with these 2 characters who were playing billiards, death billiards, calling back awesomely on the OVA that spawned this series. But of course these were 2 different characters. And you see that Ginty is very much eager to mess with them and screw with them and everything like that, but Decim doesn't. Decim admits to the fact that he's actually sort of dwelling, sort of thinking about the emotions those people are probably feeling, what they're thinking. And this is something new. This is something sort of outside the box. And it all has to do with basically Nona. The revelation we get between the discussion of Nona and Quinn, when we see her in the modern sense, you know, this is all flashback prior to that. And it's a story, by the way, that Quinn is, or rather Decim is telling Onna. But you see that, you know, basically Nona has admitted to Quinn the fact that she has imbued Decim with human emotion, perchance to guide him, perchance to make the arbitration process more human or better or a more fluid process, perchance she wants to throw a wrench in the works, whatever the reasoning. She has done this. This is no longer a question. Decim is feeling emotions because they're in him. And the most eloquent and beautiful soliloquy to this revelation is the one with which Decim imparts to Onna about his, what she calls a hobby, but it's obviously a lot more than a hobby. It's a passion, and it's something meant to just embody, that sense of loss, carrying on with the memory of those who have been lost for all time. Decim takes the dummies that these souls inhabit, which is quite a revelation in and of itself, that, these people who are here, they're actually just animated dummies with the souls imbued in them. But the idea that he, puts these dummies back together, he clothes them, he makes them appear as the people who have passed through Quindecim, to, just call forth their memory, to have their presence always there, because he doesn't literally remember the memory of these people that, the arbitrators have to be housed with in order to judge them. It fades away just as soon as it came in for those sole purposes. So this is Decim's own sort of, even though Onna does, react like, oh, this is beautiful, but, oh, wait a minute, you don't actually remember them, so it is just a hobby. No, it is very much more than a hobby, and it's because we know Decim has these emotions. This is how he's processing what he has to do. And there's a question passed between Quinn and Nona about, has he even gotten to the point where he's questioning the validity of arbitration yet? No, he's still in the early going. And that shows us some sort of divide that happens that I believe Nona is way beyond herself, being sort of Decim's boss, and being that she's reading the Chavot book. It seems to suggest to me that Nona has already reached that point, gone beyond it, and now maybe she's trying to rebel against the system. Toward the end of the episode, if you stayed past the end credits, Nona has gone back to Castra, of course, in the Information Bureau, and she's trying to bribe Castra to send 2 specific souls who are up for arbitration, who are supposed to go somewhere else, to Decim, to test Decim, or maybe to further flummox the system, or maybe even to prove her point that, her sort of newly found outlook on how arbitration should go goes against the old rules that Oculus is so bent on. And it seems because Oculus follows up with Nona, basically he goes to her environment, and she has asked him not to do that for some reason. I guess she's wigged out by the old man, but she hasn't been going back and playing billiards with him as we've seen in previous episodes, and he's becoming suspicious. It seems to imply, to my mind, his calling out these rules at the start of the episode, and then following up with a visit, impromptu though it may be, to Nona. There could be a chance that he suspects Nona of something. I mean, he basically all out and out says to her, is the reason you're not, hanging out with me and coming and playing a game with me, are you hiding something? And so the tension in that moment rose, because it's like, wow, look at all the stuff that's going on. And then you have Ginty, who's in the same position as Decim. He has a soul he can't judge, because of just the craziness that Mayu represents from the previous episode. But we see her in the OP, and the question was on my mind, and I even voiced in the previous episode discussion video, is she going to be a permanent fixture in this environment? Is she just going to be much like Onna, there for the time being until she can be judged? And you see that Ginty is just so thoroughly racked with this, because, when he's basically hanging out with other arbiters during, I guess, lunch break or whatever, they're talking about, no, this has never happened before where somebody can't be judged. And you think they're talking about Decim, and for the most part they are. But then this revelation with Ginty comes to the fore, and we see that he's in the same position. He was knocking Decim, but he's in the same position, making him all the more aggravated and upset. So, I mean, this episode had just so much going on, you know, revelation-wise, and all these characters were in play, as I say. You know, Decim's so-called hobby, remembering the souls that have been lost that he has had to arbitrate over, Ona's dream and a memory of, you know, having been alive. She lets it pass perhaps a little bit too quickly, but of course she's then misdirected with everything, you know, Decim is revealing to her. So it's arguable whether she's just like on the fly and doesn't care about that, or I have a feeling we'll touch back upon further memories, or at least the revelation that she now knows, or at least in that moment she suspected that she had been dead at one point. And, you know, like I say, with Nona seemingly trying to throw a wrench in the works for better or worse remains to be seen. You know, that's the question mark in her actions of putting human emotions into Decim, being introduced to Quinn, knowing who came before and how lively she was. And she talks about, you know, the Information Bureau is a very hard business. 7,000 people die, what is it, a day or whatever? I mean, 2 every second. You know, it's absolutely insane. You have all these little crystals that you see, which are supposed to be the memories, and they have to really go through them as speedily as possible to get the most relevant memories, you know, set up for the arbiters. And it's just insane that. And then, of course, Oculus with his potentially knowing that Nona's up to something, whether he has suspicions as to what. You know, I almost feel like it's going to be one of those things where you feel he's a very ominous character, and he's going to be so upset with, you know, Nona's doing this, and he's going to punish her, and there's going to be some kind of extreme engagement, and then you find out this was a test he was putting forth for Nona herself, or something. Like, you know, there could be a twist where he actually approves of Nona's actions, much as Nona is trying to test Decim in this arbitration game with the emotions he has imbued in him now, as we found out she put into him. You know, it would be interesting to find out that Oculus has been similarly testing Nona in her sort of boss position over these arbitrators and stuff. And so yeah, it seems as though the next episode is really going to be focusing back upon souls to be arbitrated, and Decim's going to be under watch. And I assume, you know, Ona is going to be as well, and I'll be interested to see what happens in further adventures, so to speak, with Ginty, whether he will be able to bring himself to judge Mayu and all this stuff. I mean, just once again, an incredible, beautiful, eloquent. There are too many superlatives that I'm falling short of saying. You know, this episode left me feeling by the end, and this is why I love this series. It's just magnificent and magical and intriguing, and yeah, from the OP music to the ending music, it's just a perfect bookend. You know, it livens you up at the start, and then it kind of tempers you down toward the end. And that's what basically the emotions of the episodes on whole have been like. And so yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of episode 7 of Death Parade, if you've seen it. And if you haven't, you really better rectify that soon. Mucho. And otherwise, I hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch y'all later. Peace.